A good and hopeful day for each and every one of us. I am Mathew Ramiro, and I will be discussing about my chosen algae specimen, which is Cephaleuros. So my report will proceed as follows. First, we will learn more about the hierarchical classification of and phylogeny of Cephaleuros, then its morphology, and finally, what are some of its interesting points and why did I choose this genus of algae. So for the hierarchical classification of Cephaleuros, we can see in the texts on the slide that it belongs to Kingdom Plantae, phylum Chlorophyta, subphylum Chlorophytina, class Ulvophyceae, order Trentepoliales, and family Trentepoliaceae, and then the genus Cephaleuros. So some examples of species belonging to Cephaleuros are Virescens, Parasiticus, and more. For the phylogeny of my chosen algae, you can see in the slide that very complicated and overwhelming figure of the phylogenetic tree of the Cephaleuros species as studied by Fang et al. In the following slides, I will wrap up the discussion of Fang et al. Regarding the phylogeny of the Cephaleuros species for us to understand better this very, very confusing tree. So, the phylogenetic tree. So, Cephaleuros has been recognized as a monophyletic lineage, but recent studies has highlighted the polyphyly or paraphyly of several species such as C. expansus, C. diffusus, C. karsteni, and C. virescens. So, phylogenetic ITS analysis and concatenated datasets revealed that Cephaleuros spp, or the Cephaleuros species, were subdivided into two main lineages. So, the lineages, however, were not mentioned in the paper by Fang et al. Lastly, based on the combination of molecular and morphological data, the Cephaleuros species is in dire need for a taxonomic reassessment. It is indeed it has indeed a very problematic phylogeny which makes it more interesting. So we will now move on to the morphology of the organism. So in this slide, we see in figure number 1 as labeled what Cephaleuros looks like when seen by the naked eye. In figures 2 to 7, a specific species is observed, along also with figures 8 to 10. So we will discuss each figure in the following slide. So all details are from the study of Fang et al. And even most of the photos. So on the leaves, algae is seen to be forming yellow-green circular spots of different sizes. So using the lectotype species of Cephaleuros, which is C. virescens, in figure 2 to 7, the thalli is composed of pseudoparenchymatous ramuli without the gaps, shown in figure 2. The filament cells were cylindrical and branched by equal dichotomy as shown in figures 4 and 5. The sporangiophores arose from the terminal cells of ramuli either single or in clusters of 3 to 5 as shown in figure 6. And then there is a single tapering setae of 3 to 6 cells as shown in figure 7. And for the next set of figures, Cephaleuros carsteni is the species used. So the thalli, which is green to orange, and it has a crenate margin. So it is subcuticular on the leaf adaxial side. And then the filament cells are usually elongate cylindrical and sometimes irregular at ramuli margin. So the branching is by equal dichotomies as shown in figure 9 and 10. So some interesting points. Many of the morphological characters are easily affected by external factors such as light, moisture, and temperature. And many species could not be accurately identified at species level because of incomplete morphological evidence. So many species showed phenotypes which are intermediates between different species. And environmentally controlled phenotypic plasticity is very much evident in the Cephaleuros species. And for example, uh, On leathery leaves or thicker leaves, the algal rhizoids must dig deeper to absorb water and nutrients for growth. So lastly, the different species infect in different ways. For example, the C. virescens is subcuticular only, while the C. parasiticus is intercellular. So, why is it really interesting to study Cephaleuros? So, number one, first bullet, it has a very problematic phylogenetic lineage. As I said before, this made the organisms more interesting because, of course, why did it become a problematic lineage? In what way? Is it problematic because of the morphology or molecular studies? And many more questions may come. Next, it is a pathogenic green alga. So algae are not known to be pathogenic in some way, but Cephaleuros is pathogenic, making it more interesting to study. So, lastly, the morphology of the different species overlap in some way. Thus, it is very questionable to curious people why the morphology is overlapping in between species. So, overall, the species of Cephaleuros is a very interesting topic because many more topics may reopen by starting a study on these such organisms. So one can reassess to further explain the mechanisms of the organisms to infect, and hence may give information to identify how to prevent and control these such plant diseases from Cephaleuros. So these are the references I used, and that will be all. Thank you.